There we go. Now it's recording.
Perfect.
Great.
Well,
So what are we doing?
hi. Well, I'm going to introduce myself because my face maybe isn't so familiar with Discord. So I'm Ben. I
I,
am known as Reverend Tate. Let's go ahead.
I think technically none of our faces are familiar with Discord.
That's fair. So that's Charles.
Yep.
That's his
With my
face.
sort of with my head phasing in and out of existence with the headphones.
So the point of this recorded podcast is that Charles and I speak about our project constantly for hours at a time, and we just thought we would bring more people into the conversation and share some of the development of. I guess I would say Turis Station, but it's actually the development of like 3 or 4 branches of
Yeah,
the
I
first
was
project.
I was gonna I was gonna say you just said talk about the project, and the I think the big question is which project,
Yeah.
which
Well,
project, which time, when did it start, which one of the 50 that have either active or hit the cutting room floor are we talking about?
we let's do a real quick breakdown, historical breakdown, like in a two minute summary of how we got to the tourist station that's functioning now. Can you do that in 2 minutes?
In 2 minutes.
Yeah. Should I time
The
you?
total history of everything to now.
Yeah, 2 minutes.
So what's that? That's 12 years in 2 minutes.
Synthetic life group.
Okay,
Step one.
so
Go.
2010, we met in university doing a fine art degree, and we formed an esoteric performance audio collective called Synthetic Life Group, where we pretended to be a biotech company creating machines that could create sound. That sums
So,
up part one.
yeah, that sums up part one, and immediately you get in that quick summary, sound, art, and machines. Pretty
Yeah,
vital.
yeah.
Okay.
We both came from disparate backgrounds in terms of an art practice. You were very much at that time uh, illustrative, primarily illustrative, and I don't know what the hell I was, but I suppose mainly anti-drawing, mostly tech. But the one thing we did have in common is I don't know if it's a dislike, but certainly a disinterest in performance art.
Yeah, I would say disinterest slash fear.
Fear slash suspicion. And
Yeah.
yeah, so right, okay, so it's 2 minutes as well, this isn't it? So right, okay, so performance art group. We created long live audio soundscapes using bunches of cheap up hacked gear because we were poor boys, and we used whatever we could to make ambient sound jams live in the moment. We evolved a nice philosophy from this, at which point the Synthetic Life Group ceased to be Synthetic Life Group after producing hours and hours and hours and hours of material and getting a sponsorship from SoundCloud at one point. And we rebranded through many arguments and tears into Host Operator, which was meant to reflect the kind of machine call response nature of the project,
Of the whole philosophy, really, at
of
that
the whole
point.
philosophy. Yeah, developed the whole philosophy, and at that point, we continue to record hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of audio, which we still have to this date, getting on for nearly 50 hours of live recordings. During that time, we dabbled around with some of the kind of the lore. I think you were doing the animation at that moment, the core
Oh, I
exits. I
th-
think.
yeah.
I feel like it's worth saying that it feels like core exit, although you have a different relationship with it, externally looked like a kind of jumping off point that kind of led into then the DB world.
Yeah, well, it's all retroactively. You look back and you can see like, okay, aesthetic styles and that sort of thing. But I think at one point I wanted to, I think the question was what, because we had 2 parts. We had performance, which was solved by events, but then we
Mm-hmm.
had like home for soundscapes, and I think this is where the real double beta tourist sort of spark happened when we were like, we can make our own homes for the soundscapes we create. Like the YouTube video that's up now of Natcha and Merce hanging out on the street side. One of my favorite host operators slash videos, because it sort of started that our own lore and our own home for our own material. And I think that was really like what started these new branches. And I say new, the new branches out of HO was Turis Station and Double Beta, I think, sort of formed.
I have actually just found a image from the first performance we ever did in that role.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. How the hell can I share this?
Yeah, there's a
Protect
way.
skills. Here we go. That'll work. And magic.
First ever gig.
In a literal cellar. A literal cellar. The other image that I saw on this ridiculous set of images was this one. Second gig, I think that was.
True. It was.
In our lovely branded gear for Synthetic Life Group.
True.
And eventually...
nostalgia. Oh, you got so many pictures.
Yeah, here we go. The machines of Synthetic Life Group. I think it could be safe to say this is a precursor Auton/host operator.
Yeah.
This is what these are 100% the it's the mythology that started creating around the project that then started bleeding into stories.
Well, I think ultimately, like what we were doing at this point in our artistic career was sort of establishing a practice. But what we really needed was the narration behind the practice, because I think the thing that linked us was storytelling and performance at that point. And we were, and now that, you know, COVID and living across the ocean, we live in different countries now, performance is very difficult. So that's why I think we've moved deeply into the narration part of our practice, and we evolved the narration that goes behind your stories you're writing, which I know the title sort of changes, the stories behind Turis, and then my stories I was writing behind Double Beta. And a quick summary: Double Beta is basically the world name I gave for the stories that we were creating at that time. It's not really there was an arc behind the title, but not really. So Double Beta became the DBU, or Double Beta Universe, just as a house to carry things. And then we brought in Chris Berry, and he started doing songs and adding that dimension to the project. And then I think it was how long has like the actual physical Turis Station been running? Like not even a year, isn't it? It's been
the actual active current project. I don't say active as in taken from off the shelf and gone, oh hey, we should do this. I think it was pretty much the start of this year. But Turis as a kind of an entity and a story, I think is probably going on about 6 years, maybe 5.
I think this
years.
is what
every 5-6 years.
This is what every creator exposes in these podcasts, which is like, hey, the thing you see is actually an iteration of 20 things to get there. Yeah. And I think we do have that backstory. And I notice a lot of times when Charles is interacting on Discord, he'll say to people, hey, there's like literally 8 years of story, 8 years of development behind all the stuff that, like you say, it's not even 6 months of tourist product on the shelf. And we have 8 years behind that. So the work has been done.
I think there was definitely a precursor to all of this was when we looked at I think it was 2011. We looked at doing a kind of a Minecraft gig video or something.
Yeah, I remember
like
that.
Really,
very well.
and I think that immediately was realized that was like no, not really. And we tried some motion capture, we tried some 3D stuff with it, and a few little videos hit the cutting room floor for that. But out of that, I think came this as the aesthetic of the world that then you kind of took it and just ran with it and created the DB universe. And I think for the Turis stuff specifically, was it 2017 we came to Canada? 2017,
yes, I think 18? So.
Yeah. 2017. Yeah. And I remember during that trip, I was disconnected from all my usual tools because I had I say minimal. I had audio gear and laptops and stuff, but like minimal gear with me. And the laptop I took with me couldn't do that much. And I think while we spent like a solid amount of time talking, working, and I came out of that with this desire to write some fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was when I came back from that trip, that's when I started writing the Turis stories specifically. And at that time, they were kind of an untested world. They were a slight different take on it. And in how we approach it as a collaboration anyway, I naturally decided to build the compartmentalization for Turis. Whereas at the time, I remember you wanted to bring it all together, and I fought hard not to. Which is amusing that this particular conversation is now happening.
This is our mo. This
Yeah.
is how we rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
So Turis as a stories, I think the first stories were written in 2017 in the forms of sketches followed by stories to back up the sketches. Those sketches then evolved into a multitude of stories, and they've basically been added to over the last 4 or 5 years when I have time. It's not my full-time project. It's a leisure project. And during that time, naturally being a game dev, there were many attempts. I mean, so many attempts at trying to create a 3D world. There was the one, like you said, out the one from the music video, which was the side-scrolling flashback style. There was multiple attempts at pixel art, 3D versions, and each one just never really felt like it worked. And
that's right.
About a year, end of the kind of the lockdowns, I'd spent a few years working with Rob at Reality Boffins, and we created Reality Boffins from working together. And he was aware of a lot of these stories and your world especially, because you've got items of yours published in the public domain rather than the Turis stuff was very much working behind the scenes project of a back house, as you called it.
Yeah.
And it bubbled to the surface, kind of combined with finding out, the rise of NFTs and the collectibles, and we love those things. And it just felt like a natural fit. Rob and I wanted to build a new project, and sitting over there was nearly 10 years of lore, story, concept art, characters, anything you could want to fill a world. And so it's like, yeah, let's do that. And it was pull all the things out of retirement, throw a quick prototype together. It just worked, and then it kind of became a active live project, which it has been since the start of the year now. So I'd say game dev wise, it's been on the prototype floor for 3 years. Story wise, it's been since 2017, and then the whole of that is basically built on all of that world you created.
Yeah, and all that world I created was built on the stuff we did. So this is the point of this little. We're past the 2 minutes clearly, but the summary is really just to say that you and I have been doing this for what, 12? Is it over 12 years now? 12 years at least, and that sort of relationship of collaboration has led to what we feel like we wouldn't even be in this place sharing this project or in these ideas if we were not convinced this is solid stuff. So from our point of view, it's all development, it's all experimental, but it's like the most solid development and experimental stuff we can do because we built it on a history of stuff. And then I think the catalyst there was your relationship with the Nova Rally people. Sort of said, okay, now we have to go. We have an audience. We have people that are aware of us. It's time to go. So this is what brought us to this point where we realize like the sort of tapestry that we've created is, aesthetically speaking, might look a little gaudy. It's so much stuff to you and I after 12 years is logically in a place. But then when you try and present that to the audience, it's like, holy crap, what the heck is this? Like there's a lot going on. And we thought, well, go ahead.
I was going to say that I think that's one of the things we realized in certainly the most recent months is that with the wealth of story and artwork that's been created previously, it's hard to get into, and the simplification of how we've presented the Turis Station stuff has kind of given a little avenue, and it's this nice thing. So there is someone missing on this because Rob is not with us today.
Yes,
Rob is part of Reality Boffins, who is my business partner, and we are the game developers for Turis Station. And the reason why this is just a little conversation with Ben and myself today is that this is the back house. This is the lore, which is ultimately drawn from to create Turis Station. So we are working through our collaborative story writing, world building, to clarify some final parts before the real push on the next days of Turis Station, the game happens.
Right. And
So
I think that's a good segue, because what we discovered, what sort of prompted, like we've already talked about, like sharing this podcast, but the reason why this was the moment was because we dawned on us that we should make it simpler. We should put things together that are currently just adjacent and literally could snap together if we just shave off a little bit or rearrange a little bit. And the one thing that we've both realized working together is the more success we have, the less ego we present. So being able to retract or rearrange our own material, our own ideas, is what makes this successful. So here we are today, and we wanted to bring everyone up to speed. We also wanted to say welcome to this journey now, because I don't even know what to call this stage, because like I'm at the point where like I could scrap the name Double Beta. Like I'm ready for the new entity we call and move forward.
Well, I have got a proposal for that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we've got Turis Station, the game, which is built on this world. Okay. And we could call the world Double Beta.
And here's the thing about that. I have an arc for my characters when I first started the story writing. And that's what, and it has, the Double Beta name has relevance to that story. And then that story I wrote, 6 years ago. And now I realize that, like, I'm not George R.R. Martin, and I'm never going to get the chance to tell my epic story. So that title may not be relevant outside of us anymore. And I'm almost convinced that it should just be called Turis. Everything we do should just be called Turis. And the books come from Turis. And there's no more Double Beta.
Well,
because the story I designed might never. Maybe, but 7-8 years from now,
Maybe we first need to define what is the universe, and then figure out what it is.
I think
because there's the universe, which is the stories that you created. There's the universe of the stories I created. We then created another entity of how the metaverse and the rules of that link together, just so we could justify our stories being in silos while still being part of a shared universe. And then those silos bled together to the point where the shared universe became a bigger thing, and then became a shared universe which allowed other things to fit in, e.g. the metaverse from the game point of view. And now the whole thing has melted together into a kind of a sort of a semi-complete rule set which allows everything to coexist, but is now leading back to the fact that, for clarity's sake, we are feeling like we're leaning toward to kind of homogenizing our story lore.
Yes.
That's kind
and
of...
I think what prompted it was when we discussed those two terms of what is a front house thing and what is a back house thing. And what we see as our project and what an audience sees currently as our project. And out on the front of the house, we have prototype Turis Station stuff that the people on Discord have access to and get to see. We have 4 publications and 5 published songs. And that's all. That's the canon. That's the real stuff that you, stranger on the street, can access right now.
Yeah.
And that is what is tangibly our universe.
This is where I'm going to say link in the description below.
Yeah. buy all our things on our Amazon page. Yeah. No, and I think this is the point where we're at, where it was like, it's dawned on me that, like, especially because I've had to go back to making money in a more traditional sense. So my time got cut by 80% of my time. See ya. And it was like, well, what we have something here that we've created that has people interested in it. We have people interested in my stories. I have a Patreon page. We have people interested in the game. We have Discord that functions really well. How do we continue to support what functions and not support what we think we like to do? Because if we do that, we'll have 10,000 projects running and never materialize. But if we focus on what's functioning and what's in the front house and build on that, then we're already building on something that people know. We're not actually trying to introduce new things to people anymore.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's the whole thing of it. Front house, back house. I mean, from the front house point of view, I can agree with the sentiment of let's homogenize it into Turis front house. However, there's part of me that still it's kind of like obviously with the Turis project and yourself with the front house projects that have been in traditionally double beta, we have other people we work with, and I think they're important parts of the presentation of it now. However,
Absolutely.
on the other side of it, there is still this historical collaboration of you and I building the foundations of the philosophies of the world of the law, and the thing that I mean, we've always talked about in the past with the idea of when you turn something into a product, you can risk toxifying the original source kind of thing, and I'm wondering, is that a possible problem? Do we need to put something in place for that? Like for example, we technically speaking still have our collaborative performance host operator group. The last thing we physically did together being the Clown Festival with the performance stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, it feels like whatever that's. I think we described it before of like on the mountain, sitting on the mountain kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Like the on the mountain side, it's that has always still kind of bubbled along with the essence of what that collaborative host operator is. So I'm just saying it from the point of view of maybe we should throw that into the barrel of the questions being, do we name back house and front house separately? Is the front house drawn from our history of back house? And if so, does the back house, I mean, for example, the back house, could it be should it be Turis? Should it be the double beta stuff that was the historical stories you've written? Should it be host operator, our historical collaborative practice? And the front house, obviously, at this time is the front house is basically Turis.
Like, to me, if I was and this is a great question. If anyone on the Discord watches this video, please comment, because like if I was to say, here's Turis, the thing, and we have the Turis Station game, it's this entry point. Then you have the Turis stories, and then you have Turis songs. Now, what's a Turis song? It sounds a bit stupid, but it's not in a sense of like, well, you have the performance name of Chris, the other collaborator with us is Lloyd Baxter. So Lloyd Baxter's music is a Turis song.
As you can currently see Lloyd Baxter on the TV on the bedroom in the test server. Unmute so like the TV and you'll hear them. You'll hear the Lloyd Baxter celebrity confrontations. You'll hear some of his jingles and also one of the songs. All original material.
And this is the point, right? Is that we're at the point now where like the front house, what people are seeing. They're like, they don't know how much Lloyd could come. They don't know how many Lloyd heads we have available, or how many Lloyd tracks are there, and how many Lloyd videos are there. They don't know yet. So they
can't see into the infinite well of Chris Berry energy.
No, they don't know that there's 22 songs just waiting for masters. So there's literally such a wealth of material, and I think now is really the time to be like, hey, like, how does this material make sense to us because we're deep in it and we've been playing with it, but how does it make sense to you, the stranger on the street, and I think it also, this sort of point in our progress came when you were telling me, because you've entered into many conversations describing Turis Station and then the relevancy of all of its parts, and you've been simplifying it. I mean, you started saying, well, there's Ben and he does this, and by the time you're finished telling someone what my part is, they've already lost interest. So you were simplifying like my position inside the project, which made sense. So as we simplify, because we know that people have like that 2-second attention span, and communicate to people, is it easier to say, have you played Turis Station? Have you read Turis stories? Have you listened to the Turis songs? Have you wore a Turis t-shirt? As opposed to, have you listened to a Lloyd song? What's that? Have you read the double beta story? What's that, right? And this is the point we're at, where it's like, it's not us. Like, we know what makes sense. You and I we have it all, the jigsaw puzzle there. We're always just rearranging pieces, but to someone from the outside, they only see a fraction, maybe 2% now of what we've made. And as we release stuff, because it's not making stuff, it's almost just like you call it, repackaging. So as we repackage and release this stuff to the front house, to the audience, how does that look? How
So
is that brand?
here's a question.
Mm.
You mentioned not being George R. R. Martin. Obviously, he has a set of books. There's a TV series, and people talk about both him, the author, the world that he's created, and then the product that was created from that, i.e., the TV shows. If you ask him, what do you think he calls his project internally, or the world it's in?
Like what's he? Yeah, I don't know. What does he call it?
Because the I think the game doesn't the Game of Thrones is his. Would he call his internally in his head? Does he think of his universe as the Game of Thrones universe, or does he think of it as the Westeros universe,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
something else entirely, or does he call it
Yes.
that book where I write all those bloody dragons and
I
never
got
return
you.
up?
Yeah. He'll never call it. He's never called. I'm writing the Game of Thrones narrative. No. He probably has it in a whole rearranged in his own mind. The Westeros epic or whatever saga, whatever he's doing. I doubt he refers to it internally as Game of Thrones. No, you're right to point that out. So that's really where we're at. Like, what is?
Well,
what
I think
Yeah,
that's what I think that's what this conversation on this instance is. What are we terming the origin stories, the lore, the back house? I think this particular part where we're talking about is the back house something which should be a thing in its own right, or is it something where what should it be termed?
Also, it's like, is there enough relevance to what we're doing? Like, if I call my story not a double beta story, but a Turis universe story, is that more appealing to our people who play the game? Does it even appeal to you to have an NFT comic called the Turis NFT comic, whatever, that you can use in the Turis Station game? Is that even a relevancy? Or because the problem is if IDW said, here's a Transformer NFT for Turis Station, everybody knows what IDW is and what Transformers are. So there's a way to digest that. But if I say, here's a double beta story, it's like, what's it? You're back to like, I'm not familiar with that IP, basically.
I mean, I suppose there is another side to it as well, is that we always said that when we started putting Turis Station together, it felt like it was a hub front. Like Turis Station, it's not like Turis for short, but it's still the station. It's the station and it as the middle of an expanded universe rather than the world it's in. So, for example, there is music which has been produced as part of Turis Station original soundtrack, and we internally and as part of what we're doing with the NFTs, we're calling that as part of the Turis Station record label / could be a publisher. Does that also be like, is the stories, for example, should DB still exist, as in the double beta stories, should they exist as a label or publisher? Like, for example, with the Lloyd Baxter the double beta television that's on at the moment, is it less that it's one or the other? Maybe it's that one manifests inside the other.
Mm-hmm. And that's a possible way of moving forward, is saying like, look, this manifests inside Turis Station, and that makes sense inside. But the difference is like, this is so for what manifests inside Turis Station, say from Nova Rally, the percentage of content that Nova Rally generates inside Turis Station is being dwarfed by the percentage of content that you and I generate for inside.
Well, I suppose that's the difference, is that Turis Station is a world that's the Turis Station double beta is a world that has created the whole world, and it's that the people of those worlds effectively have been able to go out and get assets from Nova Rally, from Crittercraft, from Beast Garden, from any other project that a player has in their wallet. So I think this is why it's a different question for the front house, back house, because
it is, yeah.
That taking into consideration that part of it, and then naming / forming the back house is directly influencing how we build up the lore world, not and I think it's
not what people see, and that's where. But that's what, like, so when we talk about front house, and this is the key to this conversation. We already have wizards on Turis Station.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at that in its isolation. Are people interested in what the heck a wizard is and where the heck they come from? Is the first question.
Yeah, obviously.
Okay. Second question is, does it matter if they come from DB or Turis Universe or My Big Red Circle Hat or whatever branch of storytelling we call that? Does it matter to someone?
You know, it's going to be called the Big Red Circle Hat.
Red Circle Hat.
No, I think the answer is no. I mean, I think ultimately it doesn't really matter, and I think maybe it's simply what we're talking about here on the in a long form is what do we call the thing when you and I are having a conversation that no one's really going to care about, and is probably a footnote when it says Turis Station drawn from the stories of, and people have just finished reading at that point.
Yeah, and this is the problem with front house back house is because you and I know that our success so far historically over 12 years of working together is making sure our back house is in order so that when we present something, it's solid. We manifested our, the Synthetic Life Group and Host Operator projects, performances, all of those things came with acclaim from our peers and from our the people who are judging us, because not because we're brilliant, but because we made sure we had our bullshit in order.
I mean, I'd almost argue to say that from our historical front house, we're objectively a bit shit in places. But it had legitimacy.
We were blagging though. Like we were actually like we're like legitimately saying, when we do a performance, we've reached an ethereal plane of existence that is.
Yeah, I'm trying so hard. I'm trying so hard not to talk about the performative state. The Society of Audio Chronology.
Exactly.
I mean, that's got so much weight to it that could be put into solidifying there could be a small kiosk on Turis Station that's just there handing out pamphlets for the Society of Audio Chronology, and it could mean nothing to anyone. But someone could ask us about it, and we could get up and do a 3-hour lecture on it with diagrams and maths. And I think that's the point. It's every small detail that looks like a casual detail, which is now manifesting in Turis Station and in your stories that you've created and published. Every small detail in there comes with all of this backstory, all of this lore, all of these, not just conversations, but sketches, diagrams, working out the maths, checking the science. Could this be plausible? Well, how much do we need to ignore to make it plausible? There's, on the one hand, we could have a picture of a ship, but on the other hand, we've got literal diagrams of how the engines can work. This is all detail that may or may not ever come out to the surface to front house, but it supplies the legitimacy and the context for the front house.
Yeah, I think it's what makes. We've always been concerned about authenticity. It's a word we is a high on our list of what we do together. Is this authentic to us? And when you're building a science fiction fantasy world, completely off the back of your head. Oh, I see a little creature in there.
Yeah, I've just been interrupted. There's probably going to be a horrific jump cut in the recording now.
Yeah, probably.
Did I just message you? What are you doing? Hello. It's a tiny me. Yeah, I'm a daddy up there and I'm a daddy here. You're going to go to the park?
Your daughter's conversation has to be recorded for posterity because it's great. It's awesome.
Right, okay. So
edit.
Hang on. I can just see it in the waveform then.
It's true.
Right. Coming back from that horrific jump cut of recording intrusion.
Families.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a small visitation by my daughter who was unimpressed that I was recording something.
Yes, my daughters are also unimpressed that we're busy recording things, but nevertheless. Okay.
So yes. Train of thought gone. Back house, front house, legit authenticity. Oh, that was it. I was gonna accuse us of being fine art knobheads.
As we would. Since we've both got fine art degrees, somebody with honors.
You're pointing the wrong way.
Not me. Not me. Yeah, so I think this is if this is of interest to people, because although this has sort of been less, hey, let's hash out where we're going with this a little bit, it's been sort of talking to the audience a bit about where we are. You and I do this regularly, and on the regular, meaning when we need to move the stuff forward, we don't hesitate to get into an hour-long conversation about one name or one word or one origin. And we find these conversations interesting, and we thought, look at as a supplementary material. Some people like to know how the car engine works, right? And this is the car engine running right now, and us tuning it,
On the other hand, some people like to eat sausages but do not want to see that pig goo coming out of the machine.
Not want to see the pig goo. And you shouldn't see that pig goo. It's gross. Don't eat sausage. So anyway, I think I probably got about 10 more minutes before I got to bail here. And
right, so should we do a speed round of timeline integration?
Yeah, okay. This was the Step point. 1. Let's get into that. Yeah. Timeline integration.
35 minutes in, we finally started the task we set down to do, which I suppose highlights the problem of doing this as this format rather than us just having a call, which will take another 4 hours, but we don't have to do all of the public pleasantries.
Honestly, like I think this is it. If you jump in, and if we do this in the future and you jump in, expect no introductions and no prep. When you come into the future, we're literally going to turn the cameras on while we talk, because we're not going to be doing this kind of.
We may pop back and post edit this and put like at least some sort of vague context onto the first few seconds before it jumps into it.
Yeah, maybe.
But it'll be edited using the classic host operator style, which is look at the audio wave only, don't listen to it, don't even really watch most of it, cut it where it looks like it might pan out, and then throw some random images on for it to cover it.
The point is, we are willing to share these moments with other people, and if that's of interest, then we'll keep doing it, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And also on subsequent ones, very much expect to have Rob joining us and possibly Chris.
Chris, absolutely.
And it because I think we'll do some tech deep dives. We'll do some more specifically curious. I think it's just this kickoff this is a conversation Ben and myself need to have to sort out where we fit our stories when we're writing. So with that in mind, and only a few minutes left before we both got stuff to do, should we solve the universe in a few minutes?
Yeah, let's fix the entire universe.
All right.
You have the mind. Do you have the mind maps? Because I'd have to find them.
I do. I have. I even installed Xmind to.
I love Xmind. Free program, by the way.
Right. Let me pull up the Xmind stuff. Bear with me. That one there. I've also got a hand-drawn one. I'll tell you what, before we do the Xmind one, can I share this image? This is the hand-drawn timeline that I think was put together on the first draft of the first Turis story, when we first had a conversation to say they're going to be in a shared universe.
Okay. Share that.
Okay. All right, here we go. Boom, that one. Remember that one?
I mean, like, yeah, of course I remember this one, but it
looks rather complicated now.
It looks like something you'd be studying in like a first year engineering or something.
It's still cleaner than the later ones. I'll just I'll get the other one up. So I have got the Xmind.
Also, if anyone's curious about my title as a writer, I'm more of an artist, but I just want to share with you a summary of work available for storytelling. This is
that's the stuff I haven't read yet.
This is back. This is stuff that we haven't even touched.
Yeah,
this is stuff that we haven't even touched yet.
I think all we have at the moment is about 200 gig of a shared folder on OneDrive of images, text, models, 3D models, game assets, videos, songs, sound effects, narratives, audio files, music, what like scans of sketches, collages of sketches of scans of collages of sketches, and everything in between. It's too much. And also, it turns out we have these old X mines which I haven't looked at in
Yeah.
ages.
This is good stuff. This is very helpful stuff for when I feel lost as a story writer too, because
So
it's been very useful.
I'm afraid I've only got the one where I rudely put the my stories in the middle of it.
That's fine.
Well, this is your timeline. Where would you like to start on this?
Well, let's look at, okay. So because this is very back house. Like if you've only been involved in Turis Station, this is going to seem complete nonsensical. So ultimately, the double beta story being double had a timeline split, and there's two versions, two stories being told, basically essentially like a parallel or a multiverse version, and of the same story. And I think because of the reality and constraints around us, we're gonna this is tangible. This is gonna be changed. This isn't a concrete thing. And Charles has added in, and let's just go straight to what you've added, where you think your stories are gonna fit.
Yeah. And these are very much the high level title groupings of stuff which is more I say active back house rather than front house, and also doesn't really include quite a lot of the stuff you've literally got in your non-online notepad. So this is the tip of the iceberg timeline, really, just to summarize areas we can fit stories into. So usually these don't necessarily have, these aren't story titles as such. It's more that these are just tentpole events in the timeline of the Double Beta universe.
That's
right. I'm going to call it, for the minute, I'm going to keep calling it Double Beta universe just because it's still the habit.
Oh, and look, I think the we have lots of time to develop how to present this stuff, but yeah, I agree. This is like main points in a basically a version of our Earth in the future, and a couple things that Turis and Charles's story writing wanted to bring from Double Beta is there are constrictions, there are restraints, there are limitations, and I've always enjoyed my science fiction being more science than fiction. And in this case,
whereas I will love a trashy space opera that doesn't care about
that. Exactly. So this is why the blending of the two is so important to us, right in the section, because we're really defining now what you see in anywhere you go. When you go to look, whether we call it Turis Station, whether we call it Double Beta Universe, there will be some similarities that you can feel comfortable knowing exist. So let's get into where you drop.
How about, because this is obviously, we're potentially talking to maybe the one or two people who have bothered to get this far into here, and their first entry into this is the Turis Station and the Autons. Why don't we start with what the hell is an Auton in this whole thing, and where does that then go to? Where does it come from? Where does it go to? And maybe that as a thread, especially since, like, I think the very first character that manifested in DB was the HO, which is basically an Auton, but then I stole it and made my own version.
Well, that was one of the threads we wanted to do for viewers, was like the original humanoid robot in my stories I called a holotype. We then abbreviated that to HO to make reference to our project host operator. So that's going back to our intro. This is why we introed our stuff, because there is current references to our own meta universe. So HO represented our sound project. Now it also represents a holotype, which is the robot, humanoid robots that I have inside my universe. And then you said, like, hey, I'm going to take those, change the name because it's a different universe, but I'd like them to look almost the same so that people can see the threads, they can see the connection between them. So then made sense to introduce Turis Station with an Auton as well, because then that character can be seen throughout anything as well. So any stories, anything, there it is. That's a good call.
Or OG. That is the OG host, HO host operator.
Auton
More
or less.
Actually, this is where I think this is the thread we need to weave today, because this is the HO synthetic life manifestation. However, the Auton is not a synthetic life.
That's right.
So, getting back to there's so many buttons on my screen right now. Do that one there. So the Autons in Turis arise in this what you'd previously called the Second Dark Age, and I've named the Rise of the Cloners.
Yeah.
With the general storyline being, and at the risk, with probably not enough exposition for this, but the precursors to humans in the solar system didn't want humans to make AI, or at least didn't want to make them in the same way that they'd made themselves, and therefore dumbed down humans to kind of fail at making AI quite hard. Humans decided to go the route of cloners. They had basically became absolute biotech like geniuses, and they figured out, instead of making AI, basically taking human clones, severing their spinal cord, creating a locked-in state, and programming them to act like robots. Not true AI, but you basically use the wetware from the brain to kind of half AI. Like, you basically take a sentient creature and control it rather than create a true AI.
To me, it's like it's like a cyborg, but not in your classic sense, because they have no more external human self. But they're basically cyborgs.
But the important thing is that to everyone inside that universe, they are presented as AI. They are presented as robotics, as synthetic. Maybe not AI. Maybe AI is the wrong word. They're presented as synthetic, not human, and are everywhere. They're like, everyone's got one. They do the dangerous work. They do the shitty work. They're everywhere. And in this new rework, because previously they were kind of my interpretation of what I saw this HO was as a synthetic creature, and also the fact that I'm really into these, like the cyberpunk scene sort of stories, and a lot of that real more kind of brutal stuff. You're a little bit more philosophical in your approach. I'm a bit more, I just want to cut people's spines out.
Yeah, I'm more of a Dune kind of guy. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
A bit more metaphysical.
Yeah. And that's good though.
So they're not synthetic, but they are treated as synthetic. And I think from your timeline of moving on to the area where you start to have the actual synthetic HOs arising, these almost they feel a bit like a precursor, especially since in these stories. I mean, do these come with spoiler alerts? It's hard to know how much backhouse to just say.
No, if you're here, you're deep into spoiler.
Okay, if you're here, then A, you're always going to get spoilers, and B, you get all the secret knowledge, because the numbers of people who are going to get this far are probably small.
You win. If you're here, you win.
You win the prize of the secret knowledge, which is in the Turis Station stories. There's basically this precursor race which predated humans, and at one point wanted to try and ascend to leave the universe into the Nexus, which we'll have to cover in a moment.
Or I think it's going to be the next podcast.
Yeah. Well, the next podcast will be "What the hell is the Nexus, and how do I get to Amaze Town?"
Exactly. That's a good title. That's the title.
And so this one is why does the Autons look like the HOs? Who stole my idea?
Who's going to win the lawsuit, Benner?
Yeah. Autons versus HOs. Who wins the lawsuit?
Yeah.
So yeah. There's an alien race. Well, not alien. They are the precursors to humans. They hit a height of technology millions of years ago, and as in an attempt to transcend themselves from stopping shuffling off their mortal coil, they basically digitized the entire solar system and every bit of life in it into a huge homogeneous hive mind known as the Oram that sits out past the heliopause in a huge world chip. And periodically, they send small versions of themselves, which is a shard of their collective intelligence, off in system to meddle with humans. And at this point in time, manifesting as the humans' incapability of creating true synthetic life. That cover it?
Yeah, and that's sort of where you were coming from, and Charles has placed those ideas in the house that I started, and in my original sort of casting of this part of the timeline was this is called the Second Dark Age because there was a rise of AI, and there was a war, and there was destruction. So we're looking at this is a post-apocalyptic landscape, which is why Charles felt it was so natural to put in this sort of cyberpunk darker elements and can fit in here because we're already in a post-apocalyptic sort of desperate sort of time.
I mean, we've got the guy Marl, one of the cloners out of our stories. He's basically Space Bezos. Like the whole of the stories kind of push towards this representation of ultra capitalism in space in the future, and how it literally is not just theoretically, but actually manifest as the very taking of a human being and dehumifying them by removing their soul. And basically, it's a very literal, on the nose dehumanization through consumerism kind of approach, with the explosion of that, and then the further it into how it could now potentially evolve into where it butts up against the rest of your stories.
Well, it works nice for me because when we get to this part of the story, there is a world acceptance that we are aware that the rise of AI was our downfall. And obviously, if we could survive that, we would outlaw that technology, which is a perfect time for a cloner to come in and go, well, hey, I can make something different that isn't an AI. Now, this is why we're doing this podcast, because now we're talking about fresh ideas, fresh stuff. I like the idea of them being caught. Like somebody figures out what the fuck are these people doing with humans and dehumanizing them and making them into autons. And that allows for the second iteration of AI to return. Because people decide AI couldn't, and we know historically cycles in history repeat themselves because people change the history and they forget the things. So I have no problem after many years of a post-apocalyptic rise and people finding out that humans have been abused, that they say, which is kind of where we are now, hey, why are we abusing humans? Let's get machines. And then they start the second iteration of AI. And it's that second iteration that comes with Fern. Fern is from the story, Double Beta Story. He's the main antagonist. And that's where we get into Natch and Mercy and the Osiris Dionysius group. And we start to move into those DB stories of maintaining a post-apocalyptic world with a second iteration of AI. An AI that is basically contained compared to the first round, because we know the severity of the situation. So another podcast, of course, is going to be what the hell does Natch and Mercy do? And we're moving into that a little bit here.
So is this first? So if these are loosely speaking the world building podcasts. Is that what we?
I think we should, be it world of lore, be it world of game dev, be it world of song, whatever we choose to share.
So this one specifically is the Backhouse world building, and I think being that time is getting short, maybe the focus on this one is a very generalized approach to answer the question of, are the Autons the precursors to the HOs?
And I would say at this point, this is like, the gavelizing moment. We got the yes.
Do we need like the official hammer to say confirmed law?
Yeah, exactly. We need like a splash graphic, please.
Yeah, confirmed. Rob, insert splash graphic here.
Perfect. Chris, we need Lloyd to sing some songs about
jingle. Yeah,
we need a jingle. So we will build up on that. And yes, we are getting late, but I think this is something we will return to. And when we return to it, as any first podcast, any first iteration, all this intro, all this nonsense that we've just shared with you today will be gone, and we can just really get into how this works. And as you had a little taste here. We actually do this in real time. We've just decided today, Auton's precursor, holotypes. That's an in-canon idea that we're now making official right now, right here. So this is the point of sharing this. And in the future, hopefully, we'll be doing more of that part of the podcast.
I think the next conversation definitely should be what the hell is the Nexus and how do you get to Amaze Town, because that very much defines the actual rules of the metaverse itself and where everything sits. What the hell? Where is Turis Station? What is it doing there? Who are the wizards? Like it leads on to all of those things.
And I really stress, if you've made it here, this is interesting to you, then you are a chosen one. And comment away. Join in the collaboration. You know, it's so refreshing to me, and I know Charles appreciates it, to have an opinion outside of the back house and outside of the creators, because we all collaborate on this. Rob and Chris, you and I, so much. Our perspective is different than yours. So any
it's also important to say that this is a pre-record, very much because you're about to move house. Life is insanely busy. The intention is that in a few months' time, once you've moved house and we've got a better studio setup set, we will be doing these as live. We'll probably Twitch stream them. For the moment, they're going to be probably broadcast as a preview on YouTube, just so there's it means we can manage it around everything that's going on. With pretty busy, but we would like to have these as a live dialogue. I think maybe if we do them as YouTube premiere, then maybe the people can come and chat in. We can keep an eye on it and chat in with it,
or let us know if you're watching,
or even just hammer us on Discord. Yeah, how do you want this? How do you want this? Do you want this lovingly piped into your ear so you can hear us just waffling on about stuff, or do you want to have a public forum where you can shout abuses at us while we talk total crap?
Let us know if you've made it, and I think wrapping up under an hour is perfect. So again, we'll be back with far more conversations about what makes sense and what works, and really exciting. This is something you and I have been talking about for probably 5 years. Like, how do we podcast together on a relevant topic? And here we are. We finally did it.
Yeah. I mean, there's a good chance that we might wrap this up in a minute, do a really, 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 really rough edit, and put this out with the Friday updates if the station controller says it's okay.
Hey, this is an update, and and this is the truth of it is, like anyone who knows how things are made enjoys this. So if you're enjoying this, thank you. If you enjoy any of the stuff we've made, be it the stories, be it the game, thank you. It's, for me, I don't want to make things without an audience, and I love the fact that we have this great audience on Discord right now.
However, if you've managed to make it this far, chances are you're not just shouting when profit, when pins, when ROI, when drop at the screen. So it's nice to get this far.
And this is going up we have a Patreon as well for Double Beta, so this will probably be available for those people as well.
Yeah.
So
I think until a future date, I definitely think these conversations, we're basically talking about the world building, the back house, until it manifests as something it needs to. It's kind of easy to discuss the back house as Double Beta. Would you agree?
Right now, it is, and
may change. May change.
And that's the exciting part, is if you're here, you'll see things brew, and then when we announce it, it won't be like, whoa, it's like, I knew what was going on.
Yeah.
Anyway, I gotta sign off. I gotta go get a pizza spot.
Right. I suppose we'll be back again at an undetermined time when we find some time.
Sounds good to me.
Ta-da.
Adios.
Just real quick, I know you got a dash.
No, I got 10 minutes. I wanted to have a little bit.
I was just thinking we should just do a really quick.
You're still recording, by the way.
Intro. Yeah, I know. It's deliberate.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think I've done a clap, so I can cut it out. I think we should do a real quick welcome. This is what we're going to talk about, and then cut into what we just talked about.
Okay.
I don't know what though. Did like a little cut, so basically. Hi. I'm Charles, aka 6-Bit Glitch. This is Ben, aka Reverend Tate. I am part of Reality Boffins and one of the co-creators of Turis Station. Ben is my long-term collaborator, co-collaborator on Turis Station, and writer of the Double Beta Universe. We are trying out this new format, which usually is us talking for many hours with nobody else listening. And we thought, maybe you want to know what the hell's going on. So here is us, and we will be talking about some of our backstory, about how we build the world. This will be one of many, so this particular instance might be a bit long-winded and winding. Have you got anything you'd like to add before we horrifically jump cut into a pre-recorded podcast? As I feel a bit dirty and hipster saying we've got a podcast. It's like all my worst dreams come true.
No, it's one of my greatest dreams come true. I love this. This is glorious. Yeah, thanks for joining us. And like Charles said, I implore you to stay until the end, because we discuss not only the history of how we got to where we are, we get into some brand new sort of conclusions, and we sort of officialize some canon stuff that just today we've done, and then right at the very end we let you know what to expect for future podcasts. So enjoy what you listen to, and thank you for joining us, and we'll see you as the video continues, I guess,
in a bunch of time.
That's a good intro. That's fine. Like, we got to remember, dude, this is like number one. It's the first podcast. Number 2,